Welcome back, Thrivers, to this newest episode of the Thriving Equine Professional. You're in for a treat today. We're going to talk a little bit about Texas whiskey and cutting horses. So, our guest today, Carley Myers, is coming to us from River Oaks, Texas, and she said that's basically Fort Worth. So, Carley, we're going to learn a little bit more about you and where you are and what you do. But tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm just thrilled to be a part of this. So, I definitely come from a not traditional Western or ag background. I grew up on Long Island, with my dad being in Northeast Pennsylvania. So, I was kind of in between those two places. No one else in my family was involved in anything Western or anything ag related, but really kind of just became a horse obsessed girl pretty young and was very lucky that my parents really like leaned in and supported my passion. And I mean, really, horses have brought me everywhere and to where I am today.
I love that. And so, as a fellow, what I call Northeast transplant, right, to different places along the way, I think that's huge to give a shout out as we talk about your career with NCHA, Carley. And you came from Long Island in Northeast Pennsylvania, right? I came from Maryland, right on the Maryland PA line. And so, I think it's really important to share with our listeners, no matter where you are, whether you are a hunter jumper, whether you are an eventer, whether you are a rodeoer or reiner, it doesn't matter. These careers are so vast and the opportunities are just incredible. So tell us then, you made the move to TCU. So let's let our listeners know what TCU stands for and where it is and how you got there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I went to TCU, which is Texas Christian University here in Fort Worth, which I'm currently in Fort Worth at my NCHA office. So just up the road, I didn't end up going very far, but I was recruited to be on the reining team at TCU. I was there and competed all 4 years. And then I obtained a business, specifically marketing degree from TCU as well. And honestly, the best 4 years that I could have asked for. I'm still super involved in TCU with their business school. I was there yesterday talking to some students about what we do at NCHA in a sports marketing class. And then I still go back and, watch all of the equestrian meets that I can, stay involved. I have season football tickets, going to all the games. We're not very good at football this year, but I'm an overall TCU supporter. I'm not a fair weather fan. So I'm kind of all in on TCU, and now so are both of my parents too, just seeing the amazing experience that I had there and the connections that I was able to make. And I mean, honestly, I can't say it enough, like an incredible university that continues to, create amazing students and opportunities for not only students, but alumni as well.
Yeah, what I mean, and it is. It's a great school. So if you are not familiar with Texas Christian University, check it out because it's probably one of those what I might call hidden gem
Yes,
universities, right? Where what
absolutely.
an impactful program they have and the support of alumni like you just speaks to the power of the program there at TCU.
Absolutely.
So
I totally
Carley,
agree.
you came from Long Island and got recruited onto the Western reining team. So let's talk just a little bit about that because most of us might think that as coming from Long Island that you would have been a hunter jumper.
Early on, I did a little bit of everything. I was involved in a little bit of 4-H, kind of did those like open level shows, just a little bit of everything. And I did the hunter jumpers for a little bit, but really kind of just found my passion in reining. And it was definitely a challenge in terms of it was a time commitment. The closest trainer to us that kind of was working with girls to go to a Division 1 level, which I knew is what I wanted. And so we knew we kind of had to find a trainer that understood those programs, that understood how to prepare someone, that understood kind of how to help someone get recruited and put them in the position to be recruited. So the closest trainer to my dad's was two hours to my dad's house and about 4.5 from my mom's house. So
Wow.
there was a lot of driving just about every weekend my junior and senior year when I was trying to get recruited. But really kind of just found my family there. Joan and Matt Palmer and Guy Palmer, who's now passed away. They've just been an incredible impact on my life, not only as horse trainers, but as people, as businessmen and women. Really taught me, how to work hard and how to do things right, but that you can still have fun and, you can still really create a family atmosphere where you work and, where you play, where people get to spend their free time. And I mean, they just really prepared me in a way that I don't think anyone else could for what it would be like when I got to college, riding a lot of different horses, just having a lot of experience on horses that were not my own. And that is essential because in Division I NCAA collegiate equestrian, you are riding the school's horses. You do not get to bring your own horses. So that's definitely a dynamic that for a lot of people coming in is different for them. But if you want to do that, I think it's really essential to have a trainer that kind of understands that program and how to prepare you for that.
Wow. So exciting. And so listeners hear that you can be recruited into a Division I equestrian program, and whether it's English or Western, because there are those programs across the country, right? And
Absolutely.
Carly, you bring up a great point. I love to give a shout out to these collegiate equestrian programs that really started through the Intercollegiate Horse Show Association, IHSA, which I rode because I am, slightly older than you. And and we didn't have those NCAA
Mhm.
teams. And so the riding of different horses, what an incredible experience that is for our horsemanship skills, right? Teamwork, horsemanship,
Yeah.
really becoming a student of the horse and becoming just that much more capable of a horsewoman and a rider.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's something that you don't really do in any other part of the industry. You're unless you're a professional horse trainer, then of course you're riding a lot of different horses every day. But once you're kind of at the amateur or the non-pro level, you really are just, it's you and your horse and you're working on that partnership. And that's the same thing that you do in college, but you just have 4 or 5 minutes to create that partnership instead of 4 or 5 months.
Right. Yeah. So let's talk then about the fact that you were in school on this varsity equestrian program. You did not pursue an equine or an ag degree. And so I love to talk about this because the power of your degree, Carly, being in business with a maybe you can explain exactly kind of where your focus was in marketing, but why did you choose business and marketing rather than equine or ag?
Yeah, absolutely. And I will start off that a lot of people that I know in the industry, I know a ton of people that have just business marketing. I know people that have ag. And so I think it's really kind of just a personal choice. But for me, honestly, I didn't ever think that I could have a career in the equine industry. It's something that I always wanted, but I just didn't think that it was attainable. I didn't have the connections. At that point, people weren't really posting jobs openly. There weren't things like of the West. It really was, who do you know? And I didn't really know anyone besides my horse trainers. I kind of knew that I wanted to pursue a marketing degree. And kind of my plan was, all right, I'm going to make a career that can fund my horse hobby, essentially. That was kind of what I thought I was going to do. I was really interested in the sports marketing specifically. That was one of my favorite classes at TCU. Excuse me, but that's honestly learning about untraditional sports in that is what made me finally realize, oh, wait, yeah, I'm sure there are people that do that on the equestrian side. There are people that manage these sponsorships and partnerships for horse shows and for organizations. And, yeah, there is someone that's on an internal team for a brand that is managing partnerships on their side. And so they still get to be involved in the industry. And so that was kind of a light bulb moment for me. And I was taking it, I think I took it my junior year, maybe early in my senior year, but that really kind of taught me a lot of the ins and outs. And other than that, I really was focusing on digital and social media marketing. That was what I already had experience in, helping my trainer out with his social media, working with his partners and stuff like that. And so I knew I had that experience, really kind of leaned into it, knowing that that was going to be the future. I mean, of our industry, that there was always going to be a need for that. and then kind of had different internships along the way that really kind of shaped what I thought I wanted to do. And then was just lucky enough to, well, I can't even say lucky. I did a lot of work to get that very first full-time job at TX, but it was a little bit of luck, a little bit of work all coming together.
Yes, I was going to say, usually I think there's some quote out there, Carly, right, about luck. Luck is the, intersection of hard work and something else. But yeah, when we decide we can get out of our comfort zone, right, and go after some of those opportunities and put ourselves, in place to be able to take advantage of them. So yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, incredible. Now, but I do want to talk about our first stop in your journey was Texas whiskey.
Yes, yes,
Tell
it
us all about it.
Yes, so I actually had an interesting entrance into TX. So I was about to graduate. It's probably February, March. I have a marketing degree. A lot of my friends had finance or accounting, and the way that those jobs and those cycles go for hiring, they kind of go into senior year already knowing that they have a job. And so I was really feeling the pressure. I was like, gosh, I'm going to graduate soon. What am I going to do? Like, I really, really need a job. And I didn't want to just take a job that I wasn't passionate about. I was definitely open. When you're first starting your career, you kind of have to be open and just see where the opportunities may be. And so my two goals were I wanted to like who I was working with, and I wanted to feel comfortable marketing what I was marketing to my family. So I wanted to believe in the brand that I was selling, no matter what it was. I didn't necessarily have a category in mind, but I was like, I'm not the kind of person that can market something I don't believe in fully. And I want to be authentic in my marketing and when I'm speaking about the brand. And so it just so happened that I saw on the TCU portal, it used to be called Frog Jobs. I'm pretty sure it's still called that now, a posting for a like entry level marketing position at TX Whiskey. I was reading all about it. I was like, oh my gosh, they partner with the stock show. This is great. Everything that they had in their job description is everything that I had been doing with my internships. And so I was like, yes, this is it. This is where I'm going. Like, I'm going to apply. I'm going to get this job. This is what's happening. Well, I applied and I never heard back. So then I applied again and I never heard back. And I wouldn't necessarily recommend applying a lot, but I just wasn't even getting a confirmation because it wasn't like an automated portal. And so I was thinking, okay, well, maybe they just haven't received it. Like, I haven't heard anything. It can't be that they maybe don't want me. It's that they obviously just haven't received it.
Right?
And so I then got on LinkedIn, my favorite tool, and started
Yes.
checking out who worked there that I may have mutual connections with, seeing if I knew anyone that was there, and noticed that a professor that I was freelancing for at the time was mutual connections with the founder of the company. And when I was going into TX, I want to say I like in the front office, like not production crew, there was maybe 8 people. I was like 9 or 10. So it was definitely still like a small, very entrepreneurial team. And so I reached out to my professor. I was like, hey, Muggleston, listen, I really want this job. I saw you're connected with this guy on LinkedIn. Do you actually know him? If so, can you send him my resume? He was like, yes, I do actually. I know him. I'll send him an email right now with your resume. And he's like, I think you're a great fit, but you never know. But he said, yeah, I'm happy to send the email. So sends the email. An hour later, I get an email back from one of the founders copying the CMO saying, hey, yes, we'd love to have you in. Like Rishi copied is going to reach out to you to schedule an interview. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. What I didn't really think about was the fact that Rishi had been reading my resume and didn't think I was a fit. And now I just went over his head to get an interview. So, it was okay. And then I went into my very first interview, and my first question, I can't even call it a question. My first statement that was said to me was by Rishi. He's like, listen, I just want to let you know, I think you are highly unqualified for this role. And that's why I haven't gotten back to you, but we're here because Leonard told me I had to interview you. So that's where we are. I was like, okay, well, that's not really a question that they prepare you for in business school. You know, I knew my strengths, my weaknesses, what my 5-year plans were. I had all of those answers very ready. I knew like what animal I was going to tell them I was, if that was like a crazy like Google question at the time. But I was not really prepared for that answer. And so I don't know what came over me because I was not, you know, a super confident person at that time, but I was there and kind of fight or flight took over. And I said, listen, I understand now based off of my age and my graduation date, you may think that I don't have the experience that you're looking for. However, based on my resume and what I've done, I feel very confident that I could do this role and do it well. And if you're open to it, I'd love to tell you more about my experience. But if my age is a deal breaker, I understand there's nothing I can do about that. And then he said, oh, okay, well, and then started actually asking me about my resume and all of that. And he's since turned into a great mentor. And when I was at TX and we would be hiring interns, I'd always tell him, Rishi, I'll take care of the interviews. You don't need to scare the children. I will do the interviews. And I asked him why he said that to me. And he said, Carley, you are going to be a 22-year-old female working in an incredibly male dominated industry. You were going to see a lot of people who thought that you were not qualified based off of the way you look, based off of your age, based off of all of these things. And if you couldn't handle me asking you that question, how are you going to face it from people day in and day out? Okay, fair, Rishi. But
You
I,
go, girl. There is like, so that right there in itself, I think I want to like just take that section of this interview, Carley, and share it out to the world,
absolutely.
because there's so much just perseverance and grit and uh really maturity, emotional maturity. And what a great example, because that is going to happen. So I do want to go back and review. My listeners know that this is how I am. I'm going to give a huge shout out to you for knowing that LinkedIn is the place to be.
Yes,
If you want a job in this industry right now, still in 2024, if you are not on LinkedIn, you are not a competitive advantage. You are not
absolutely.
positioning yourself as a young professional who wants a job in this industry, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so then second, I love that you use LinkedIn for what it's meant to be used for, right? LinkedIn is not a social platform as much as it's a professional platform. And the fact that you did your homework and you found a mutual connection. And I tell students all the time that LinkedIn is the one platform where it is not stranger danger. We
Yes.
are meant to connect with people who we don't necessarily know, right? Because what we're doing is trying to grow our network. So you
Exactly.
used your existing network and then you saw a mutual connection and you pursued it.
Mhm.
And then you pursued it with a great deal of maturity and action, right? Behind it of here's who I am and here's why I'm coming for this. And the fact that you are sharing with us, Carley, that you were applying for a role that you were quote unquote not qualified for. Every one of the jobs I've ever gotten, I've not been qualified for. And so it is all about the people, the connection, the ability for someone to put your resume in front of the person who needs to see it, even if they already decided they don't want to see it.
Yep. Oh, absolutely.
Just so much wisdom in that. And so, even being faced with that kind of negativity, and whether we're talking about the, distillery industry or the whiskey or bourbon industry or the ag industry, we are stepping into a still male dominated world that is a little bit intimidating or sometimes a lot intimidating. And so being able to hold our own professionally comes from experiences like you had in college, right? Comes
Oh,
from networking and mentorship from folks who are older than us, that have experiences and are willing to teach us to be gritty and to be resilient and to, be passionate about what we are, but at the same time, always learning and growing who we are. Anyway, I'll step off that soapbox, but that, like, your story is so refreshing and so impactful. And I want our listeners to hear that.
oh, I absolutely. And I share it really anytime I can, just because it's something that you don't ever really, you don't think about. Like there's going to be moments in your life where you look back and you're like, wow, okay, I really did that. And it could be as simple as, answering a question that you weren't expecting correctly, or going up to someone that you don't know and shaking their hand, or sending that first message on LinkedIn. Like you never know what little thing you do that will impact your life and your career.
Yeah. Oh, incredible. Well, and so I do want to get to, the transition now to NCHA. So tell us about, first of all, explain NCHA. I always like to explain all of our acronyms for our listeners, and then tell us how you got there and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So NCHA is the National Cutting Horse Association. When I was working with TX, I created additional partnerships within the Western industry, knowing that, I mean, this is an incredible space, and especially to outside businesses, it's really untapped in a lot of ways. And so I knew that I could come in here and make a really big impact for that brand while it's still being affordable. And so TX had already partnered with the Fort Worth Stock Show, and I helped them launch the National Western up there as an official partner, and then started rolling with, at first it was individual trainer sponsorships. So we had cutters, we had reiners, we had a few people that were in like the NSBA, AQHA world. And then after we saw the success with them, I was able to convince my bosses that we should do bigger partnerships with the associations. And so I really got to see what it looked like to be a sponsor in this industry. And through that, I met Jay Winborn, who is now my boss. At the time, he was at the NRCHA and TX was sponsoring them. And so I met him a little bit over there. And then TX got acquired, and there was just a lot of different changes that were happening there that I think if I wanted my career to stay in the spirits industry, if that was my passion, it would have been a great place to be. We got acquired by an incredible company that had a lot of opportunities for me to go all over the country, honestly, all over the world, work on different brands. But I really kind of took a step back and realized the pieces of my job that I loved the most, the ones that made me want to get up in the morning and go to work, were those partnerships in the Western and ag industries. And that's what I loved. I loved being at the horse shows, talking to people, being back at what I felt was home for me. And so then I started kind of pursuing a career in this industry. Again, now I knew a little bit, a few more people from working at TX, but obviously didn't want to be blasting it out on my LinkedIn because I didn't want to jeopardize the partnerships that I had created with TX. So it was a little bit of an interesting navigation, but I was very lucky while I was at TX. I had a great relationship and still do with Taylor Sheridan. And so I called him to give him a heads up. I was like, listen, Taylor, I'm thinking of leaving. I really want to pursue something in this industry. I just want to let you know, give you a heads up. But if you happen to hear of anything, let me know. And I didn't really think anything of it. I mean, he is the busiest person I've ever met in my life. I truly don't know how he is 100 places at once. But whenever you're with him, he's fully present. Like, it's incredible. Anyway, and so he told me, he's like, oh my gosh, okay, well, I'll make some calls. It's like, okay. Honestly, I didn't really know if he was going to make calls or not. Again, like I said, he's the busiest person I've ever met. I'm pretty sure he's the busiest person in the entire world. And so just the fact that he even offered to do that was incredibly meaningful for me. But 10 minutes later, I got a text. Hey, call this guy, Jay. He's going to help you out. Okay, great. I called Jay, said, okay, let's have lunch on Wednesday at this place, this time. Okay, great. Again, I think I'm going into a networking lunch where I'm going to talk to Jay. He's going to tell me what he's done in the industry. He's going to tell me maybe some different people I should reach out to, or companies that may be looking. And so I go into this lunch, and Jay tells me all about NCHA and what they're doing. I'm like, that is so, yeah, that's amazing. I love what you guys are doing. And I'm just looking at him like, okay, so are we ever going to talk about how are you going to help me? Because Taylor told me you were going to help me and I need some help. And he said, well, anyway, so this is the role that I have in mind. You would be coming in and you would be doing sponsorships and partnerships, and this is the pay and benefits and all of that. And I just looked at him, It's like, to be clear, are you offering me a job right now? He said, yeah, that's why we're here. Didn't Taylor tell you? No. Taylor told me we were just having lunch. And he said, oh, well, that's what I told him to do, but I figured he had told you. And I was like, no, no, no one told me. I thought we were just having lunch. I did not know that this was a job offer. So got the job offer. I was like, I love this. Can I have just like a day to think about this? Because I didn't know I was coming into a job offer. So I would love a day to do additional research on NCHA because I had done some, I knew I was going to meet with Jay. I researched Jay. I looked at what they were doing so I could be prepared for our conversation, but I didn't do the depth of research I would before working for a company. So took the day. I mean, he pretty much offered me exactly what I had always been wanting to do in the industry. And so accepted it. That was in 2021. I have been here ever since and have kind of my role has grown. So now I'm the director of marketing and sponsorship. So I oversee a team of 3. We do everything from, creating partnerships, managing those relationships, creating signage, hanging up every single sign that exists at our shows. Everyone always asks who puts up all the signs. It's me and my team. We put all of them up. And creating content. We're working on a docu-series right now. We've created some other kind of longer form pieces of content to tell stories of our members in the industry. Activating at different events that we sponsor. Like we really do a little bit of everything. And my team is definitely small but mighty. But Jay, our executive director, has done an incredible job at really creating and fostering the team first mentality. And so my team has that. All of the teams here have that. And so there's really never a time where someone is like, oh, that's not my job. It's whatever needs to be done. We're all going to work together. We're going to get it done for the good of the organization. And so that was one of the things that drew me here when Jay was talking about NCHA was the kind of culture that he was trying to foster, him coming in as kind of a newer executive director and what he wanted to create here. And that's part of the reason that I wanted to come here and, knowing growing up, always playing sports and then being on the equestrian team at TCU. And then at TX, it truly over there was also a team first mentality. And I realized that that was something that was really, really necessary for me because I am that person. I have that team first mentality and I wanted to be surrounded by other people that had that same mentality.
Just incredible, right? Like, and you are in, Carley, your first decade of your professional career. You have, made that one major move. You are leading people. You are building culture and part of a culture that you chose very intentionally and purposefully. So there's just so much learning in that for our listeners. And so I do want to talk about cultivating a team, right? You are a young female leader early in your career and you are leading a team. And I love that you asked your best friend what she would say about you when I start to ask some questions ahead of an interview like this. And so here is your best friend saying, you are loyal and ambitious. You don't beat around the bush and you tell it like it is, even if it's the hard truth. You always help us celebrate the small and big wins. And when you love something and are passionate about it, you give it your full heart. So I just thought that was beautiful, first and foremost, Carley. And then, but I do want to talk about that you're leading this team and you have cultivated a really culturally mature team where, as you say, you're doing everything from hanging the signs to, building content, etc. So tell us a little bit about that part of who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think again, it all goes back to Jay and the culture that he told me he was wanting to build, and he's been an incredible mentor. But he really kind of lets us run our own business here. Of course, he's there as a mentor. I talk to him every single day. Obviously, big decisions he's super involved in. But when it comes to a day-to-day basis, he really lets us run our own business. And so I hand chose 2 of the people on my team. The third, I was involved in her initial hiring process, and then I kind of recruited her over to my team. So I'll say that I handpicked all 3 of them. They are just incredibly amazing. And going through the hiring and the interview process, they all showed an incredible level of just emotional maturity, of talent and passion for the industry and what we're doing. And everyone has a little bit of a different background, which I think is extremely important because it helps you kind of balance each other's ideas. You know, if one person is like, this is what we have to do, and then someone's like, okay, well, let me just play the devil's advocate here. That could be seen as this. Or what if we did it this way and it brought it to the next level? And so I really kind of try to keep a very open dialogue with my team, not kind of micromanaging everyone. I treat my team the same way that Jay treats myself and the other directors, is letting everyone really kind of own what they're doing and run their part of the business and being collaborative when we can, and really trying to keep that team first mentality. So, if I need anything, everyone on my team is there to help. If someone else is like, hey, I have a really, really full workload right now, like I need someone else to handle this, that's something that is very easy for us to do. We all pitch in, we all jump in when someone else needs help. And it's not, I always try to teach them, it's not that you can't do it. I'm sure you could. If there were 27 hours in the day, you could get it done. However, I don't want you here until midnight working on something when someone else has a little bit less workload at this very moment. So let's just shift it. It's not that big of a deal. And I heard a great analogy. I'm in the junior league here at Fort Worth, and one of our speakers had the analogy of that. You're always juggling plates, but some plates are glass and some are plastic. And so at any given time, there's a different piece of your life or your career that's glass that you're like, okay, I have to make sure this doesn't drop. But then there's other ones that you're like, okay, that can hit the floor and I can pick it up and it's going to be fine. And so we kind of try to treat different projects here like that. Okay, I don't have to be the one doing this. Someone else can do it just as well. We can shift that off of your plate so you can focus on what really needs to be done by you at this very moment.
Yeah, true collaboration, right? Like just, really focusing on that, which requires a great deal of communication.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
no doubt. So there are a couple pieces of advice, Carley, that you like to offer, because I always kind of position this as to say, let's talk to your 5 year ago or 10 year ago self. And so one of the pieces of advice that you give that I think we've heard throughout your journey here is to believe in yourself, your passion, your experience, and your value. And you say, don't sell yourself short. So tell us why that's one of your leading pieces of advice for your former self and others who are coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. There have been moments in my career where I look back and I say, I wish I would have spoke up in that meeting. I knew that I had something to offer, but I didn't necessarily feel comfortable saying something, or I didn't, because I was the youngest person in the room or the least experienced, I didn't feel like I had the right to speak up, or the knowledge to speak up. And then, later on down the line, I saw something turned out and it was fine, but I knew that it could have been better if I would have spoken up a little earlier. It would have felt comfortable to do that. And so everyone has a different experience. And it doesn't matter if you have 4 years of experience, 5 years, or if you have done this your whole life. Everyone's experience is something that is relevant, and everyone has a different take on things. Everyone has a different point of view. And it doesn't matter how many years of experience you have. If you have something to say and you think that it could be impactful or helpful, I say it.
Yeah.
And that's really something I try to foster with my team now as well, is even when you're an intern on my team and it's your first week, I'm like, if you come in and you have a question about something or you have an idea, like I want to hear it.
Yeah.
We always want to try to get better. And so it takes everyone's perspective to continue to grow and innovate. And I think now I feel a lot more comfortable with that. But earlier on in my career, even in some of my internships, I wish that I would have, kind of believed in myself and my experience and my knowledge enough to speak up or raise my hand and say something.
Yeah. Good for you. Great advice. And I will say this, and, hearing what you say is that your authenticity builds your credibility, right?
Absolutely.
You're talking about being confident enough in uncomfortable situations to speak up, but that level of authenticity totally builds your credibility with people. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so the other piece of advice that I really want to ask you about is do your research. So tell me more about why you like to advise others to do your research.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's been a lot of times that either I've interviewed someone or I've had a company pitch that we should partner with them, and it's just very clear that they don't know what we do or who we are. And honestly, when you come into something and you're not prepared and you haven't done your research, I mean, I completely think it's disrespectful. It's a lot of times it's a waste of someone's time. If you would have done just a little bit of homework, maybe the meeting would have gone a lot faster. We wouldn't have had to have three meetings. We could have had one 30-minute meeting, or maybe this didn't need to be a meeting at all. All the questions that you're asking me, you could have found on our website and we could have moved forward a lot quicker. And so I think that, whether it's you're going into an interview or you're going in to listen to a speaker, or, you're going to have a guest in your class and, there's going to be a Q&A. Well, don't just wait to hear what they say. Like, look them up, figure out
Yes.
what they've done, have your questions prepared ahead of time. So when you go in, you already know what you want to ask them about. If you're going into an interview, research the company, research the people that are going to be interviewing you if you can, have those questions ready when you're going into an interview instead of, oh no, I don't have any questions, which is fine. A lot of times that happens when you're on the spot and then you follow up, and that's fine. But if it's something that's a major question for you that you could have already had and had answered, and then maybe that makes you not want the role, that's fine. But then we could have figured that out a lot quicker if you would have been prepared and done your research.
Amen.
Yeah.
Like I just told a student the other day, they came to me and asked a question, and I said, did you look her up on the internet? Oh, no, I haven't done that yet. There is just no excuse, listeners. Hear me. I'm going to be blunt about this. We have never had access to more information in the history of all the world. And there is no shortage. A company's website, you should know the mission, the vision, the values, the core values and statements, and you should know the things on the website, right? And so I just wholeheartedly believe in that. That's another one of those power of LinkedIn, right? Whether it's people or companies or brands, there are things you should know, and that is on you.
Absolutely. And
So
I
yes.
mean, it can only help you. Like everyone that we have hired, that I've hired on my team, they came in, they had done their research. I asked them, have you looked at our social media? Yes. And this post, I thought this one specifically was great. Or, I read this article in your magazine of last month and it really stood out to me. Or, I watched this piece of content that you did. And just showing that level of engagement, because honestly, like if I'm interviewing 10 people, even 5 people, the one that stands out to me is the person that I instantly had a connection with because I could tell they did their research.
Yes, without a doubt. It's a competitive advantage, as I like to say.
Absolutely.
There are a lot of things that you should know coming in,
Mhm.
and that is very apparent, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, good. Well, I know we could continue this conversation. It could go on for hours, but as we kind of wrap up, we haven't talked a lot about really the other roles in Carley's life, right? You're clearly a very successful young professional, but you are also a wife, and you're a dog mom, and even a foster dog mom, and a great friend, and all of these other things. And so one of the questions that I love to ask Carley to learn a little bit more about you is really, in the face of today's hustle culture, is there a piece or two of advice you would share that relates to life balance? You are a busy woman, and you are not only a professional with the National Cutting Horse Association, but you are all these other roles. What would you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably not the person to necessarily give this advice because I say yes too much, and this month has really made me realize that. But I will say I try to, prioritize my time how I can. I try to be present where I am and really kind of I'm like a schedule queen. Like if it's not on my calendar, it's not happening. And I think for me, being intentional with where I spend my time. But like I'm not, I will say I am not probably the person to be talking about this because I was up till 11:30 last night, helping my husband. He's moving into a gift market this weekend at Christmas in Cowtown. And so I was up helping him like load the trailer and finish projects. And then this morning I got up and helped him move into the show. While I was at the show, I was getting messages about my role in Junior League, which is social media for this market, trying to post while I'm helping him also set up, and then hustling into the office. And I was like, hi guys, I'm here. Don't worry about it. Now I'm here. This is me. But I will say, like, for example, when I'm here, I'm not, working other things. I try to not be distracted when I can. And then same with when I leave the office and I go and I'm at a junior league meeting, I try to just focus on that. And then when I'm home with my husband and my dogs, I try to focus on that and shut everything off. I've not mastered it yet, but that's something that I'm actively working on, is kind of making sure that I really am present where I am and giving kind of people or the project or whatever it is as close to undivided attention as possible. Undivided attention in my life is not it. That would be really hard, but as close to undivided as possible.
Yeah, great advice. And I heard you use the word present multiple times, right? To be present. And I really continue to talk more and more about that. And honestly, it's a journey that we're all on. It is progress, not perfection. And we're all trying to juggle that. I love your analogy about the glass plate versus the plastic plate, and knowing that we have all of these roles in our lives. And so it really does come down to being present where you need to be present, when you need to be present.
Yeah.
And so I think that's just such great advice. And then, Carley, do you have a book or podcast that you would recommend to our listeners? And if so, why?
Yes. So I have two that I am most recently obsessed with. So one is the Rafter P Grit Branded podcast. And so Brad Pryor just recently started it. Brad and Rafter P are one of our sponsors here at NCHA, but he has really been just having a bunch of different and interesting people on his podcast to talk about the grit that they have, the tenacity, how they overcame different obstacles in their life. And so that one I've loved listening to. And then another one that I love is the Leaders of the West by Jesse Jarvis. I mean, when Jesse was launching Of the West, I reached out to her immediately. I was like, Jesse, I am obsessed with this. NCHA wants to partner with you. How can we tell literally everyone in the world about this platform? And so her, growing that into the podcast as well. Like, I love Jessie. She's a great friend. And the people that she has on that podcast, again, just a wealth of wisdom that I wish I would have had sooner. I feel like I'm blessed to have it now, but I'm like, oh my gosh, imagine in college I could have been listening to this when I was driving to and from the barn every day. Like, this would have been
Yeah,
amazing. But those are two of my favorites. There's a lot of, incredible ones out there, but right now those are my two go-tos.
I love it. Yes. And we talk a little bit about Leaders of the West. That one has been brought up a couple of times. So I also love that podcast. And now we have a new one. So we'll get both of those linked in today, as well as I know there's going to be listeners that want to connect with you. We've talked already in this episode about LinkedIn, and that's always my first go to. You and I are connected on LinkedIn. People can find you, Carley Myers, on LinkedIn. Where else? Let's send them maybe to NCHA socials and web, right? So tell us a little bit
Absolutely.
more about.
Yep. Our Instagram is NCHA Cutting. Same with our Facebook. You can also find on NCHA Films. Those are some of the longer form pieces of content that I was talking about. We have a long episode about one of our riders, Michael Cooper, and his life story, and it's incredibly impactful, and I definitely recommend watching that. But all of the different pieces of content that are longer form we put out on our NCHA Films YouTube. Our website's a great resource. But yeah, we have Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, really anywhere that you want to find us, we are there.
Awesome. We love that. Carley, I cannot thank you enough. Really, what a journey and what a story to showcase the power of intentionality and purpose as you moved through your collegiate career and made that transition from student to professional. You are really in your first decade showing us how it's done. You are truly thriving, and I just can't thank you enough for sharing some of your story with us today to inspire and empower others to do hard things and build confidence and gain clarity and all of those things. Just thank you so much.
Well, no, thank you so much for having me. I mean, we chatted a little bit before this got started, but I'm just thankful that you are creating this platform so that even more people can get involved in the Western and ag industries and just have the awareness of all of the opportunities that are out there, of the people that are involved in the industry and getting to learn from them, whether they know them personally or not. So I really thank you for having me and allowing me to tell my story.
Yeah, incredible. And so, yes, listeners, keep sharing it. This is truly for the young folks that you were and we were 5, 10 plus years ago. We want them to know how many careers are out here because I know you said it and I say it all the time. I didn't have any idea what an incredible career I could even dream of or the roles that were out here for me in the ag and the equine and the Western space.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, it's growing every day. We have been joking around the past few months. Are like, it has never been cooler to be a cowgirl.
Yes.
We're in the thick of it right now. And yes, we're really just excited of all of the media traction and just awareness that our industry is gaining. And I've always been proud to be in the industry. I've done a lot of education, growing up on Long Island, no one knew like, what is this? What is this little bucket thing you have in your photos? I'm like, oh, it's my hat can. I keep my cowboy hat in here.
Right.
And so that's something that I really loved. And, we always want to continue to do at NCHA is to educate people about this industry, bring new people in. It's an incredibly welcoming community, and we're just thankful to be a part of it.
Yes, amen. It is 2024, the year of the cowgirl.
Yes,
And thank you, Carly, for being just an incredible cowgirl leader and sharing your story. Thank you.
absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thrivers, we'll see you back here, same time next week. Have an incredible week. Cheers.
Cheers.